What gets me here is the notion that President Obama is an addict, and I looked up how to deal with a drug addict, because his drug is government, and communicating with a drug addict. And you'll hear a drug addict, and it's interesting because I've dealt with drug addicts in my own life. It's sad, and it's frustrating. And what happens sometimes is if people are living with drug addicts or around them and the family members or close friends, they start making apologies and rationalizations for the drug addict. Because the drug addict's not going to be honest. They're going to rationalize, they're going to justify, and they're going to try to minimize. I went to the how-to on how to communicate with a drug addict. You're insulting the president. No, what I'm saying is if you have somebody and you post a record, as we did with the commentary in the first hour, I'm getting emails from our guests right now saying, are you going to call? Well, we're working on that. Assume we did call. So what gets me on that is the fact that I'm not doing anything but trying to understand behavior and trying to understand what has to be said in order to believe that things are going to get better. Because in order to believe what I had to get, I can't really look at what has happened. I can't hold somebody to account and say, here's your promise, here's the result. I have to believe in the future, look away from that. Now, that doesn't make me very smart. In fact, it's going to set me up for failure. And that's what our country's being set up for, failure. It's hurting our country. So when you hear the rationalizations and the justifications and the minimizations, understand that that is part of the denial strategy, and that's what this president is in. And in order to make sure that he can really put those things forth, he's got to characterize those who disagree, those who will hold him to account, the American voter without hyphens, and say, hey, they're racist. And in order to do that, you have to buy into that, and that's what we've talked about. What is the truth? That's why I always talk about false narratives and false characterizations. Say, look at the evidence. And it's up to Republicans to do what they're going to do, Democrats to do what they're going to do. But I will say this, in stating the truth and understanding what the truth is, and understanding that President Obama lied to the American people in Benghazi, lied to the American people when it came to keeping your health care plan, tried to rewrite history and even lied about that, and now says he's going to do things on his own because Congress is not cooperating. You don't understand, again, what our founders understood, which was consensus. Then you have consensus, and what does that lead to? That leads to taking the case to the American people. But when he does that, he doesn't gain support. Why? Because he has a record of failure. Because what he's saying is not lining up with success. So you get what you get. And though you're going to get demonization. I love what they say. I have a couple segments dedicated to this tomorrow night, and I know you're going to like it because it's going to be a how-to guide to listen to the State of the Union address. And you're actually going to enjoy the State of the Union address if you do this. Trust me. It'll happen. Right now, I want to go back to our Huckabee-Schumer debate. And in order to do that, I want to bring up Mike Huckabee talking about the American people and government and incentivizing production. What he has said is, if you want behavior that you like, you incentivize it. You don't penalize it. If you want to stop something, you penalize it. And he's talking about the tax system and people producing more. People have the audacity to earn more money and produce more, either a good or a service, and grow their businesses and have jobs, which is a result of a successful business. You don't go in and say, I'm going to create jobs now, and then come up with the idea. No, it's a result, and you've got to put the hours in, and it's a beautiful process. And wow, Huckabee nails it. Let's go back to that. Roll it.
The message we need to send to working people across America, especially those who have been somehow fooled by the Democrats into thinking that higher taxes is a wonderful thing to see, is just to tell them that when the government taxes you, that's the government's way of saying that they don't value the work that you do. They value what they're doing with your money, not what you did to get it. And I know people that come home every day from work bone tired, exhausted. They lift heavy things. They carry loads. Their muscles hurt. And the government, by wanting to tax them more, is essentially saying, what you do isn't very important. What we do as a government is so important that we're willing to take more of what you do and do with it what we think is more valuable. When is America going to say, government, you don't have much to show for what you've done? You've spent money you didn't have. You borrowed money you couldn't afford to pay back. We can never pay back what they've borrowed, never pay back what they've spent. And maybe the people who worked hard and earned the money ought to keep a little more of it. That's the Republican message.
Now, take it away from a Republican Democrat. He's making a pitch to the Republican Party, and that's he's a Republican. And he states that, again, agree or disagree with Mike Huckabee, incredible speech, Reagan-esque, and did a great job. And he had courage to challenge, actually, some things in the Republican Party that some Republicans will agree with, some Republicans won't. But he absolutely did a great job with the speech. Good content. Why couldn't they not cover it honestly? Because you just heard what he said. It makes sense, doesn't it? And it lines up. It is true. You hear it, and it's true. That's why they can't deal with it honestly. That's why they have to do what they did on MSNBC. That's why they had to do what they did to Ted Cruz on CBS. I'll post that later.